Sit tight, Klingon. Human warship incoming. Captain Dylan Webb's phlegmatic voice crackled over the comm as the USS Defiant, a diminutive vessel dwarfed by the monstrous Borg cubes, hurtled out of warp and into the fray. The experimental ship represented humanity's last hope against the relentless Borg onslaught that had annihilated all but 50 ships of the once mighty 200-strong Klingon fleet. Mere hours ago, Captain Novak of the KDF Vorcha had watched in horror as a massive armada of 500 Borg cubes poured into Klingon space near the Kitoma system. He immediately sent out a distress call, rallying every available warship to mount a desperate defense. But the Klingons' disruptors and torpedoes barely scratched the implacable Borg vessels. Tractor beams ensnared Klingon ships as cutting lasers sliced them apart like a butcher dicing meat. After 6 hours of bloody combat, Novak beheld a battlefield, strewn with the flaming hulks of 150 once-proud Klingon warships. In contrast, a mere 5 Borg cubes had fallen. Novak knew that the Borg would snuff out the Klingon race's very existence if they seized Kitoma. In desperation, he broadcast a plea for aid to anyone who would listen. He never expected the humans to answer his call. The Federation had always been a peaceful, almost docile presence in the quadrant, avoiding conflict whenever possible. Most Klingons dismissed them as weak, but now, as the Defiant charged into the teeth of the Borg armada, Novak began to realize how badly he had underestimated them. Phaser cannons and quantum torpedoes tore through the Borg ship's nigh-impenetrable defenses as if they were paper. The tiny Defiant danced around the cumbersome cubes, dodging tractor beams and slicing apart smaller spheres by ramming them with ablative armor. Explosions burst across the void as the human ship wreaked utter havoc. "Warriors of the Empire, rally to the Defiant!" Novak barked, seizing the moment. "Today we fight alongside humans to drive the Borg scum from our space." Bloodied but unbroken, the surviving Klingon ships roared back into the attack, no longer fighting alone. The battle was far from over, but now the Borg faced a united front. The Klingon fleet pushed forward, emboldened by the Defiant's unorthodox assault. But the Borg adapted quickly, rotating fresh cubes to the front while the damaged ones fell back to regenerate. Green status bars on the Klingon ship's displays steadily dwindled towards red. "This is Captain Webb. Stand by for slipstream on my mark." The human's voice cut through the static on the comm. 3, 2, 1, engage! The Defiant accelerated into a blinding flash, vanishing from Novak's sensors. A heartbeat later, the ship reappeared, now lancing through the Borg fleet at speeds that defied physics. Subspace distortions rippled in the vessel's wake, ripping through Borg shields with minimal resistance. "Concentrate fire on their power nodes," Webb barked to his crew. Phaser pulses, glowing impossibly bright, punched through 3 cubes at once, leaving gaping holes ringed in molten metal. Novak seized the moment. "Warriors, target the breaches, cloak and move in for the kill!" The Klingon fleet shimmered and vanished, reappearing seconds later in an unpredictable pattern around the staggered Borg armada. Battered cubes struggled to lock targets as disruptors and torpedoes hammered into them from all sides. Borg tractor beams snared only empty space. For a moment, victory seemed possible. Then space ripped open as a behemoth emerged from transwarp, a Borg tactical cube, dwarfing the Defiant 50 times over. A pencil-thin beam lashed out, slicing through Kitoma's planetary shields. The cube's tractor beams snared the helpless planet, pulling it inexorably towards assimilation. "Webb to all points. I'm taking the Defiant in." The human's voice was leaden. "Get our crew to safety. This is going to be a one-way trip." Novak opened his mouth to protest, but the tiny ship had already vanished in a slipstream flash, reappearing impossibly inside the tactical cube. He watched in awe as escape pods burst from the Defiant's hull, human life signs beaming to the nearest Klingon vessels. 30 seconds later, a new sun ignited in space. The cube vanished in a maelstrom of light and shattered metal as the Defiant's warp core detonated. A subspace rift yawned open, tendrils of energy snaring the nearest Borg in an inexorable grip. Cubes vanished into the hungry maw lost forever between the stars. Novak sank back in his command chair, releasing a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. The Defiant was gone, sacrificed to save Khitomer, to save the Klingon people. The battle still raged, but the Borg were in disarray now, reeling from the loss of their mightiest ship. A ghostly shimmer cascaded across the bridge of the KDF Vorcha as Captain Webb and his surviving crew materialized. The acrid stench of burnt circuitry and the copper tang of spilled blood assaulted their senses. Ragged Klingon warriors, their faces contorted with mingled hope and suspicion, turned to face the new arrivals. Webb wasted no time. He strode to the tactical console, his voice ringing with authority. "Reconfigure your disruptors now. Modulate the frequency to match the Borg's shield harmonics." The Klingons hesitated for a heartbeat, glancing to Novak for confirmation. The captain gave a curt nod. Fingers flew across consoles as the crew raced to comply. Webb reached to his uniform, activating a small, unassuming device. It whirred to life, projecting a shimmering hologram of the battlefield above the bridge. Borg cubes glowed an angry red, the Klingon fleet a defiant green. As Novak watched, the display shifted, zooming in on individual weak points in the Borg formation. There, and there. Webb jabbed a finger at the hologram. "Focus fire on those junctions. Their shield regeneration is 103 seconds slower in those sectors." Novak relayed the orders, his eyes widening as the Klingon ships unleashed a barrage with pinpoint accuracy. Borg shields flickered, the emerald beams finding purchase in the microscopic gaps. Across the bridge, Lieutenant Commander Hawkins hunched over the computer core, his fingers a blur. Lines of code scrolled across the screen, a digital virus worming its way into the Borg network. "Uploading now, sir," Hawkins reported, his voice tight. On the monitor, a Borg cube shuddered, lurching drunkenly into its neighbor. Sickly green light pulsed across the linked ships as the virus propagated. Spheres tumbled out of formation, disruptor fire searing wildly into the void. The Klingon vessels responded instantly, years of discipline overriding any hesitation. They formed a rigid sphere around the Vorcha, a filled hedgehog of disruptors and torpedoes. A high-pitched whine filled the bridge as Webb activated the quantum resonance field. The ship shuddered, consoles sparking. On the interface, the Klingon fleet pulsed with an ethereal blue light, their movements now perfectly synchronized. The word was barely a whisper, but the effect was devastating. The Klingon ships unleashed a wall of coordinated destruction, their weapons finding the gaps in the Borg shields with ruthless efficiency. Cubes exploded, their hulls peeling away like the skin of an onion. Debris spun through space, the glittering fragments a deadly minefield. Webb turned to Novak, his eyes hard. "Detonate your torpedoes in the debris field, now." Novak complied. Antimatter met matter in a blinding flash, the explosion triggering a cascade of secondary detonations. Borg ships vanished in the maelstrom, reduced to their component atoms. A final cube broke away, straining to open a transwarp conduit. Webb's fingers danced across the console, activating the subspace beacon. Reality tore, a yawning chasm of swirling energy engulfing the fleeing ship. It vanished into the rift, trapped forever in the endless recursion of a temporal loop. Silence descended on the bridge, broken only by the soft chirp of damage reports. Webb sagged, the weight of command etched into the lines of his face. He turned to Novak, his voice heavy with the burden of knowledge. "Captain, what you've seen here is just the beginning. The Borg aren't our only enemy, and humanity has been preparing for this war for centuries." The implications hung in the air, a palpable presence. Novak met Webb's gaze, 1,000 questions burning in his eyes, yet in that moment, one truth crystallized with perfect clarity. The galaxy would never be the same. As the last sparks of battle faded into the void, Webb's fingers danced across his console, activating a hidden quantum transmitter. A burst of exotic particles streamed towards Earth, carrying a coded message far beyond the range of conventional subspace communications. On the Klingon bridge, Novak turned to Webb, his brow furrowed. "What have you done, human?" Before Webb could reply, a blinding flash erupted in the space before them. Reality itself seemed to twist and bend as a massive portal tore open, its edges shimmering with an otherworldly light. Novak's jaw dropped as a behemoth emerged from the rift. A human dreadnought, the USS Prometheus, dwarfing even the largest Borg cube. Its hull was a shifting tapestry of strange, iridescent patterns that seemed to absorb and bend the very light around it. "Incoming transmission from the Prometheus, sir," Lieutenant Hawkins reported, his voice tinged with awe. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a stern-faced human in an unfamiliar uniform. "This is Admiral Marcus Chen of the UESS Prometheus. All Klingon vessels, prepare for immediate evacuation of Khitomer." Novak surged to his feet, his face contorted with rage. "We will not abandon our homeworld, human. The Klingon Empire does not flee from battle." Webb placed a restraining hand on Novak's shoulder. "Captain, you must listen. The Borg cube we trapped in the temporal loop is emitting a subspace beacon. It's summoning reinforcements, an armada far larger than anything we've faced." As if to punctuate his words, the Admiral's voice crackled over the comm. "Deploying automated defense platforms now." On the screen, a swarm of metallic objects burst from the Prometheus's launch bays, streaking towards Khitomer. They moved with a fluid grace, their forms shifting and adapting as they arranged themselves in a defensive perimeter around the planet. Novak watched, his eyes widening as the platforms activated, their surfaces overflowing with miniaturized versions of the same quantum weaponry that had torn through the Borg fleet. "All Klingon vessels begin evacuation procedures immediately," Chen ordered, his tone brooking no argument. "The Prometheus will provide cover." As if in response to some unseen signal, the dreadnought's hull shimmered, massive mechanical arms unfolding from its sides like the limbs of a titan. They reached out, grasping the smaller Klingon ships with surprising delicacy, lifting them into the cavernous hangar bays that gaped open along the Prometheus's flanks. Webb turned to Novak, his eyes intense. "We need to coordinate the evacuation. Use your remaining ships to form a defensive perimeter around the Prometheus. My people will handle the rest." Novak hesitated for a moment, his pride warring with the undeniable reality of the situation. Finally he nodded, his shoulders slumping in resignation. The bridge became a hive of activity as the Klingons worked to organize the retreat. Disruptors were recalibrated, shields rerouted to protect the vulnerable civilian ships as they were drawn into the Prometheus's embrace. Suddenly the sensor console screamed a warning. Multiple transwarp signatures detected. Hundreds of Borg cubes exiting transwarp space. On the console, space rippled and distorted as a veritable wall of Borg vessels dropped out of transwarp, their clean geometric forms a stark contrast to the organic curves of the Klingon ships. Immediately the automated platforms sprang into action. Beams of scintillating energy lanced out, bypassing the Borg shields as if they weren't even there. Cube after cube shuddered under the onslaught, their pristine surfaces marred by gaping, molten wounds. But the Prometheus was just getting started. A hum of power crescendoed through the ship as its primary weapon came online, a massive particle cannon that extended from the dreadnought's prow like the lance of an avenging god. It fired, and Novak had to shield his eyes from the glare. A beam of pure weaponized dark matter leapt forth, so black it seemed to devour the very light around it. It swept across the Borg armada, and dozens of cubes simply ceased to exist, torn apart at the quantum level by forces beyond comprehension. For a moment it seemed the tide had turned. Then, with a chilling inevitability, the Borg adapted. Their shields flickered and changed, shifting to absorb the dark matter. The particle beam lashed out again, but this time the cubes merely rocked under the impact, their hulls scorched but intact. "They're adapting faster than we anticipated," Webb growled, his fingers flying over his console. "But I have a plan. Novak, order your ships to fire their disruptors in the following pattern." Data streamed across the Klingon consoles, and Novak relayed the orders with a growing sense of understanding. The Klingon ships moved into position, their weapons locking onto the specified coordinates. As one, they fired, their reconfigured disruptors pulsing in a complex interwoven pattern. The beams crisscrossed the battlefield, intersecting at precise points. And where they met, reality shuddered. Subspace itself resonated with the cacophony of energies, and the Borg shields flickered, their adaptive matrices struggling to compensate for the chaotic interference. Seizing the moment, the Prometheus struck, but instead of its particle cannon it was the ship itself that became the weapon. A chronoton field surged out from the dreadnought, engulfing the nearest Borg cubes. Inside the field, time accelerated to a dizzying pace. Borg drones withered and crumbled to dust, their biological and mechanical components aging centuries in the blink of an eye. Cubes corroded and decayed, their hulls pitted and rusted, until finally they collapsed under their own weight, disintegrating into clouds of ancient debris. Novak watched, transfixed with horror and awe, as the humans wielded time itself as a weapon. He glanced at Webb, seeing the man in a new light, no longer just a cunning tactician, but a being of terrifying power, willing to unleash forces that defied the very laws of the universe. And as the battle raged on, the Klingon captain couldn't shake the feeling that this was just a glimpse of the true might of humanity, that the battles they'd fought, the weapons they'd wielded, were mere shadows of the true depths of their power. The realization sent a chill down his spine, even as he watched the Borg armada crumble under the onslaught of the Prometheus and its impossible weapons. For if the humans could do this, what else were they capable of? And what role would the Klingons, and indeed the rest of the galaxy, play in the new order that was to come? The battle raged on, but the Borg were not done. Their cubes realigned, focusing intense graviton beams on Khitomer. The planet's crust buckled and cracked under the assault. "They're trying to tear the planet apart," Novak shouted, his fists clenched in rage. Webb's fingers flew across his console. "Prometheus, deploy planet shielding array, now!" Space rippled around Khitomer as massive generators materialized, their forms solidifying out of shimmering energy. They ignited, casting a flickering energy field around the beleaguered planet. The Borg graviton beams splashed harmlessly against the shield. A priority transmission cut through the chaos. Novak's eyes widened as he recognized the sender. "It's from Konos, the High Council." "What is it?" Webb demanded. "Reinforcements," Novak breathed, "led by Chancellor Martok himself." Webb nodded grimly. "We need to buy them time." He tapped a hidden control on his tactical hologram. The device hummed, projecting thousands of false sensor readings into space. On the console, a sea of illusory ships winked into existence. Frigates, cruisers, dreadnoughts, a vast armada that dwarfed even the Borg fleet. The Borg cubes paused, their attack faltering as they diverted resources to analyze this new threat. "Hawkins," Webb barked, "launch the nanites now." Hawkins complied, his fingers dancing across his console. From the Prometheus, a cloud of microscopic machines surged forth, each one piloted by a quantum AI. They swarmed towards the nearest Borg cube, slipping through shields and finding purchase in hull breaches. Inside the cube, the nanites went to work. They infiltrated Borg systems, rewriting command protocols. Suddenly drones turned on each other, their implants overridden by conflicting directives. Cube after cube erupted in civil war, Borg battling Borg in silent, deadly conflict. A new flotilla of ships dropped out of warp. Chancellor Martok's reinforcements had arrived. The IKS Negavar led the charge, its experimental Herc cannons blazing. Salvos of anti-protons lashed out, destabilizing Borg shield matrices. "Chancellor Martok," Webb hailed the Klingon flagship, "coordinate your attack with the Prometheus. We'll clear a path through their defenses." "Understood, human," Martok's gravelly voice replied. "Today is a good day to die." Webb's face hardened. "Prometheus, prepare to fire Thalaron radiation projectors." Novak's head snapped around. "Thalaron weapons? But those violate every treaty in the quadrant." The Prometheus's hull opened, revealing banks of sinister projectors. They fired sweeping beams of sickly green energy across the Borg fleet. Where the beams touched, organic matter crystallized instantly. Borg drones froze in place, their bodies turned to lifeless statues. Cubes drifted lifelessly, their crews transformed into brittle sculptures. Dozens of Borg ships fell, overwhelmed by the forbidden weapon's power. Novak stared at Webb, fear and respect warring in his eyes. "What manner of warriors are you humans?" Webb met his gaze, his expression grim. "We're the kind that survive, Captain, despite the toll." The battle raged on. Humanity's dark secrets laid bare against the implacable Borg threat, and Novak couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The battle reached a fever pitch as a massive new threat materialized. Space twisted and bent, disgorging a Borg Unimatrix ship of unprecedented size. It dwarfed the regular cubes, a behemoth that blotted out the stars. Novak's eyes widened. "By Kales!" The monstrous vessel wasted no time. Its weapons ports flared to life, unleashing a barrage of chronoton torpedoes. The projectiles streaked across space, their ethereal glow masking their deadly nature. As they impacted the Klingon ships, the effects were immediate and horrifying. Metal corroded in seconds, hulls buckling and twisting as centuries of decay took hold in moments. Klingon warriors cried out in anguish as their bodies aged rapidly, withering before their comrades' eyes. Webb's fingers danced across his console, his face a mask of concentration. "Prometheus, extend chronoton field, protect the fleet." The human dreadnought system surged into overdrive. A shimmering bubble of altered time expanded outward, enveloping the Allied ships. The Prometheus groaned and shuddered, the strain of manipulating time itself evident in every stressed bulkhead and overloaded circuit. Inside the protective field, the aging effects reversed. Klingon warriors watched in amazement as their bodies returned to their prime, while their ships' hulls regenerated. Novak's comm panel crackled to life. "Captain, this is Dr. Kavai on Kittimer's surface. We've made a discovery in the ancient vaults, a Herc weapon of immense power." Webb locked eyes with Novak. "We need that weapon. Hawkins, beam down and assist the Klingon team." As Hawkins dematerialized, the Unimatrix ship unleashed its next assault. A beam of crackling energy lashed out, tearing into the fabric of subspace around Kittimer. The planet-shielding array flickered and died, leaving the world vulnerable. Webb's face hardened. No choice, activating quantum singularity. A point of absolute darkness bloomed before the Prometheus, a controlled black hole that began to pull in everything around it. Borg cubes were drawn inexorably towards the event horizon, crushed and shredded into their component particles. But the singularity's hunger was indiscriminate. Kittimer itself began to shudder, its orbit destabilizing as the miniature black hole tugged at its mass. Hawkins' voice cut through the chaos. "Sir, the Herc device, it's a reality-altering weapon. It can rewrite local physics." Webb didn't hesitate. "Activate it now." On Kittimer's surface, Hawkins and the Klingon scientists worked feverishly, deciphering alien controls. With a final command, the ancient device hummed to life. A wave of scintillating energy burst forth from the planet, expanding outward at impossible speed. As it washed over ships and stations, every piece of advanced technology went dark. Borg cubes drifted lifelessly, their cybernetic systems fried beyond repair. The Prometheus and Klingon vessels weren't unscathed, but their more robust backup systems kicked in. Primitive screens flickered to life, while engineers rushed to restart vital systems. A storm of disruptor fire, photon torpedoes and pulse phaser blasts erupted from the Allied ships. The Borg vessels, unable to raise shields or return fire, were shattered under the onslaught. Explosions bloomed silently in the void as cube after cube succumbed to the devastating barrage. The thunderous implosion of the Unimatrix ship sent shockwaves rippling through subspace. On the Prometheus's bridge, alarms blared as sensors detected a new threat. "Sir, Kittimer's orbit is destabilizing," Hawkins shouted, his fingers flying over his console. "The quantum wake is pulling it towards Mars." Webb's face was a mask of exhaustion, but his eyes burned with unwavering grit. "Extend structural integrity field, we're not losing that planet." Before Webb could issue another order, space rippled before them. A fleet of sleek, dart-like ships materialized, their blue hulls gleaming in the starlight. "Andorian Imperial Guard," Novak breathed, recognizing the design. A gruff voice crackled over the comm. "This is Commander Shran of the Andorian Imperial Guard. We detected massive energy signatures in this system. What in the name of the ice gods is a Klingon world doing in human space?" Webb opened his mouth to respond, but Novak's shout cut him off. "Intruder alert! The Borg nanites! They've infected our systems!" Horror spread across the bridge as they realized the implications. The microscopic machines were rewriting the Klingon ship's code, threatening to assimilate the entire crew. Webb's mind raced. "Hawkins, take a team, use the Herc device, create a localized field to revert the nanites." As Hawkins sprinted off the bridge, Webb turned back to the view screen. "Commander Shran, we need your help. Kittimer is on a collision course with Mars." Shran's antennae twitched with curiosity. "Agreed, but you owe us answers, human." The Andorian ships moved into position, deploying shimmering beams of energy. They sliced into Kittimer's crust, attempting to break the planet into manageable chunks. But something was wrong. The planet's surface buckled and heaved, massive fissures spreading across entire continents. Webb's eyes narrowed. He had one last bold strategy. "Prometheus, fire main cannon, target Kittimer's core." "Do it!" The massive particle cannon powered up, its muzzle glowing with barely contained energy. It fired, a lance of destructive power that bored straight through Kittimer's crust and mantle. The effect was immediate. The planet's core liquefied, its rigid structure giving way to a more malleable form. But Webb knew they'd only bought time. "Begin evacuation immediately. That core won't hold for long." As Klingon ships and Andorian shuttles streamed towards the doomed planet, Webb took a deep breath. It was time for the final revelation. "All ships, stand by for a major stellar event." He entered a complex code into his console. For a moment, nothing happened. Then space itself seemed to ripple and tear. A massive object materialized directly in Kittimer's original position. Shran's voice crackled over the comm, a mixture of awe and anger. "What madness is this, human?" "An elaborate test," Webb replied, his voice heavy with the weight of secrets finally revealed, "of Earth's planetary defense systems." The implications hung in the air as the evacuations continued, Kittimer's death throes illuminating the impossible sight of humanity's hidden world. As the revelation of Earth's true nature hung heavy in the air, alarms blared across the Prometheus. The Herc device, pushed beyond its limits, began to spew tendrils of warped reality. Space itself buckled and twisted, turning the battlefield into a nightmarish funhouse mirror. Webb's eyes narrowed as he took in the rapidly deteriorating situation. Prometheus, full power to chronoton generators, create a temporal bubble around that distortion field. The ship's engines howled in protest as a shimmering dome of altered time enveloped the chaotic zone. Within its confines, debris and shattered Borg cubes danced in a grotesque ballet, stretching and compressing in ways that defied comprehension. "The bubble's shrinking, sir," Hawkins reported, his voice tight with strain. "We can't maintain it for long." Novak stepped forward, his Klingon pride burning in his eyes. "I volunteer my ship for a final assault. We'll fly into the heart of that madness and detonate our warp core. The subspace implosion should collapse the field." Before Webb could respond, the view screen lit up with a blinding flash. Massive structures unfolded around Earth, dwarfing even the largest starbases. Planet-sized energy collectors sparked to life, tendrils of crackling power reaching out to drink in the reality distortion. The Andorian's question went unanswered, as Earth's power grid visibly strained under the influx of energy. Arcs of lightning danced between continents, while the planet's atmosphere rippled with barely contained power. Shran's antennae twitched as he made a decision. All ships, link your power systems to Earth's grid. We can help distribute the load. As the Allied fleet scrambled to assist, Hawkins' voice cut through the chaos. Captain, the Herc device is alive. All eyes turned to the science officer as he worked feverishly at his console. It's a sentient AI. It's trying to communicate. A distorted voice filled the bridge, its tones alien and unsettling. We were created as guardians, left behind to watch for the return of our masters. The Borg were but a test, a pale shadow of the true threat. As if in answer, space ripped open near Jupiter. A massive wormhole yawned wide, disgorging an armada of ships that made the Borg fleet look insignificant by comparison. Their hulls pulsed with organic technology, defying classification as either living or machine. The Herc have returned, the AI intoned, its artificial voice filled with dread. Webb, Novak, and Shran exchanged glances, years of mistrust and rivalry evaporating in the face of this new, overwhelming danger. The human captain's mind raced, piecing together a desperate strategy. The reality distortion field, he said, his voice hard with tenacity. We can use it as a weapon against them. Shran's antennae quivered with nervous energy. And the Andorian fleet will run interference. We'll buy you the time you need. As the Herc armada advanced, their ships overflowing with weaponry beyond comprehension, Webb gave the order that would decide the fate of not just Earth, but the entire quadrant. All ships, battle stations, we make our stand here. The ragtag alliance of humans, Klingons, and Andorians moved into formation, a thin line of defense against a tide of cosmic horror. They were outgunned, outnumbered, and facing technology they couldn't hope to match. But they had one advantage the Herc couldn't anticipate, the sheer desperate ingenuity of a humanity with its back against the wall. The Herc armada struck with terrifying speed. Organic missiles, each rivaling Earth's moon in size, hurtled through space on a direct course for humanity's homeworld. Webb's eyes sharp as he watched the monstrous projectiles approach on the tactical display. All ships intercept pattern Delta, Webb commanded, his voice steady despite the overwhelming odds. Prometheus, prepare quantum phase torpedoes. The Allied fleet surged forward, a patchwork of human, Klingon, and Andorian designs united against cosmic horror. As they closed with the Herc missiles, Webb gave the order. Fire quantum phase torpedoes. Brilliant points of light erupted from the Prometheus's launch tubes. The torpedoes flickered in and out of existence, their quantum fields allowing them to bypass the organic shields of the Herc missiles. Inside the colossal projectiles, matter and antimatter annihilated each other. Space itself screamed as miniature black holes bloomed within the Herc missiles. Gravitational forces beyond comprehension tore the organic hulls apart, reducing moon-sized weapons to clouds of subatomic particles. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Hawkins worked feverishly at his console, collaborating with the alien AI to modify the reality distortion field. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he input the final command sequence. "Field modifications complete, Captain," Hawkins shouted. "Engaging now." A shimmering bubble of altered physics expanded outward, engulfing a significant portion of the Herc fleet. The effects were immediate and bizarre. Energy beams fired by Herc ships transformed mid-flight, becoming streams of multicolored flower petals that drifted harmlessly through space. The hulls of mighty warships liquefied, their crews spilling out into the void. Herc soldiers, visible through breached hulls, stumbled aimlessly, unable to form coherent thoughts as the fabric of reality warped around them. For a moment it seemed as if victory was at hand, but the Herc were far from defeated. Before Webb's eyes, the organic technology of the Herc vessels began to shift and mutate. New structures grew from their hulls, pulsing with otherworldly energy. Reality anchors, the AI informed them, designed to stabilize space around the Herc ships. Then came the Herc's true weapon. Shimmering fields enveloped their vessels, causing them to flicker in and out of existence. One moment, a massive Herc dreadnought would be directly in the Prometheus's firing line. The next, it would vanish, only to reappear elsewhere untouched by the barrage of Allied fire. "Dimensional shifters," Hawkins reported, his voice tight with frustration. "They're existing in multiple realities simultaneously. We can't get a lock." Webb watched as Allied ships were picked apart by enemies they couldn't hit. The tide of battle was turning, and not in their favor. Suddenly Novak's face appeared on the main viewscreen. The Klingon's eyes burned with fierce perseverance. "Captain Webb," Novak growled, "my crew is evacuating to your ship. I'm taking my vessel on a collision course with the Herc flagship." Before Webb could protest, Novak's ship accelerated, driving straight towards the heart of the Herc fleet. At the last possible second, a blinding flash erupted from the Klingon vessel. The experimental singularity drive activated, tearing a hole in the fabric of space-time. A massive artificial black hole sprang into existence, its gravitational pull immediately felt across the battlefield. Herc ships, caught unprepared, were drawn inexorably towards the event horizon. But Allied vessels weren't spared either, their engines straining against the pull of the cosmic maelstrom. Webb's tactical officer's voice cut through the chaos. "Sir, the black hole is expanding rapidly. At this rate, it'll consume the entire solar system within hours." Webb's mind raced, considering and discarding options in split seconds. There was only one choice, a gamble so insane it might just work. "All hands," Webb's voice rang out across the ship's comm system. "Prepare for emergency maneuvers, we're going in." The crew of the Prometheus felt the deck plates shudder beneath their feet, as Webb guided the ship directly towards the event horizon of the artificial black hole. The plan was simple and terrifying. Fly into the heart of the singularity and detonate their experimental zero-point energy core. As the Prometheus crossed the point of no return, Webb allowed himself one last look at the battle raging outside. Allied and Herc ships alike were being torn apart by gravitational forces beyond comprehension. Earth hung in the distance, a fragile blue marble that held the fate of humanity. With a final command, Webb engaged the Prometheus's engines. The ship plunged into the inky darkness of the event horizon, disappearing from normal space as they prepared to make their final, desperate stand against the cosmic horror that threatened to... The Prometheus plunged into the inky void of the black hole. Webb's hands flew across the control panel, activating the ship's final defense, the temporal displacement field. A deafening hum filled the bridge as reality warped around them. The viewscreen became a kaleidoscope of impossible colors. Webb felt his body stretch and compress, his mind struggling to process eons passing in heartbeats. With a violent lurch, the Prometheus burst free of the black hole's grasp. The bridge crew blinked, disoriented, as a new vista filled their screens. Hawkins's fingers danced across his console. We're in orbit around a red giant star, sir, but the stellar composition is all wrong. This star is dying." "How far did we go?" Webb asked, dread creeping into his voice. A heavy silence fell over the bridge, broken only by the soft beep of an incoming signal. "Sir," the communications officer said, "we're detecting a faint transmission from a nearby planet." The viewscreen flickered to life, showing a desolate world. Its surface was a maze of canyons and dust storms, but beneath the chaos, a flicker of artificial light caught Webb's eye. "Assemble an away team," Webb ordered. "We're going down there." Minutes later, Webb led a small group through the twisted corridors of an underground city. Their flashlights illuminated stasis pods lining the walls, each containing a slumbering figure. A door hissed open at the end of the hall. Inside, a single Herc elder sat upon a crystalline throne, its eyes, multifaceted and alien, fixed upon Webb. "We have waited long for your arrival," the elder's voice resonated in their minds. Webb stepped forward. "You knew we were coming?" "We have seen all possibilities," the elder replied. "Your presence here was inevitable." The Herc gestured to a device at the center of the room. It hummed to life, projecting a swirling galaxy of light. "Behold," the elder intoned, "the truth of our actions." Images flooded Webb's mind. He saw civilizations rise and fall across countless worlds, each one facing the same insurmountable challenge, the heat death of the universe. "Our invasion," the elder explained, "was a bold strategy. We sought to unite the galaxy against a common threat, to pool our resources and knowledge in a final bid for universal preservation." Webb's mind reeled. But the destruction, the lives lost. "A necessary sacrifice." The elder's voice was tinged with regret, or so we believed. Back in the present, Novak and Shran's ships maneuvered desperately around the expanding black hole. "Divert all power to the deflector dish," Novak barked. Shran's antennae twitched with nervous energy. "Engaging subspace tensor field, now!" A shimmering barrier of energy enveloped the black hole. Its growth slowed but didn't stop entirely. On the bridge of Shran's vessel, Hawkins worked feverishly alongside the Herc AI. "If we modulate the quantum frequency," Hawkins muttered. The AI's voice crackled through the speakers. "Affirmative, encoding temporal coordinates now." A burst of energy erupted from their combined systems, piercing the veil of space-time. "We have to go back," Webb announced. "Our actions here could save not just Earth but the entire universe." The Prometheus limped back to the swirling maw of the black hole. Alarms blared as the ship shuddered under the temporal stress. "Hull integrity failing," an officer shouted. "All hands abandon ship," he ordered. "I'll pilot her through alone." Protests erupted, but Webb's iron will brooked no argument. As escape pods jettisoned into space, Webb gripped the controls. The Prometheus vanished into the swirling vortex, leaving its crew to watch helplessly as their captain and their ship disappeared into the unknown. The Prometheus vanished into the swirling maw of the black hole. For a heartbeat, silence reigned across the battlefield. Then a blinding flash erupted in Earth's orbit, so bright it overwhelmed sensors and view screens alike. As the light faded, jaws dropped and eyes widened. A massive structure now encircled Earth, a Dyson sphere of staggering proportions. Its surface gleamed with an otherworldly sheen, a fusion of technologies beyond comprehension. Powerful gravitational waves pulsed from the sphere, visibly warping space around the ravenous black hole. The cosmic maw shuddered, its voracious appetite suddenly checked. Within the sphere's cavernous control center, a figure materialized. It was Webb, but not as they knew him. His face was lined with age, his eyes burning with the weight of centuries lived in mere moments. "Status report," Webb barked, his voice rough with disuse. A holographic display sprang to life, showing the chaos outside. Webb's fingers flew across the control panel, muscle memory from lifetimes of experience guiding his actions. "Deploy primary defense systems," he commanded. "Initiate drone swarm." From hidden bays along the sphere's surface, countless machines erupted. Each no larger than a fist, they moved with eerie synchronicity, a hive mind born of alien tech and human ingenuity. The drones swarmed the Herc vessels. Their hulls, once impervious to conventional weapons, offered no defense. Nanoscopic tendrils burrowed deep, disassembling ships at the atomic level. The harvested material flowed back to the sphere, feeding its continued growth. Aboard the sphere, Novak and Shran led teams through twisting biomechanical corridors. Their ships, now docked within, served as temporary bases of operation. "These systems," Shran muttered, his antennae twitching nervously, "they're beyond anything I've ever seen." Novak grunted in agreement, his hand never leaving the hilt of his batleth. "Stay alert, we don't know what—" A shriek cut through the air. From a side passage, a grotesque figure lunged. It was Herc, but twisted, melded with the sphere's structure. Novak's blade flashed, cleaving through biomechanical limbs. "Intruders," Shran shouted into his communicator. "We've got hostiles inside the sphere." Meanwhile, in a chamber humming with barely contained power, Hawkins interfaced directly with the sphere's AI. His eyes were wide, pupils dilated as information flooded his consciousness. My God, he whispered, his voice trembling. The power source, its entire galaxy is compressed, consumed. Webb's voice crackled over the comm system. I know, Hawkins. I've lived through the harvesting of 1,000 stars, but it's necessary. This sphere is our last hope against entropy itself. In the control center, Webb addressed the gathered leaders. His words painted a picture of cosmic horror, the inevitable heat death of the universe. The sphere, he explained, was humanity's ace in the hole, a way to create a pocket universe where the very laws of thermodynamics could be rewritten. Silence fell, broken only by the distant sounds of battle. Jean spoke first, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. You're asking us to sacrifice everything we've ever known. To save all of existence, Novak growled, his eyes burning with intensity. Before anyone could respond, alarms blared. Hawkins' voice cut through the cacophony. Temporal shockwave detected. Our actions. They've created a paradox. The wave will erase our entire timeline. Webb's face hardened. He'd prepared for this. Initiate phase shift, now. His fingers danced across the controls. The sphere hummed, power building to levels that defied comprehension. What are you doing? Novak demanded. Webb's eyes never left the console. Moving our entire local group of galaxies out of sync with the rest of the universe, it's our only chance to avoid temporal erasure. Shran's antennae went rigid, but that would mean isolation, Webb finished, forever cut off from the rest of existence, but alive. The sphere pulsed, reality itself bending around it. As the temporal shockwave approached, Webb gave the final command. Space twisted, stars blurred, and in an instant everything changed. The multiverse battle raged across countless realities, but within the control center of the Dyson sphere, Webb Prime's eyes widened in horror. His hands flew across holographic displays, data streams confirming his worst fears. Hawkins, report, he barked. A chorus of voices responded. Multiple versions of Hawkins from different realities, their words overlapping in a discordant symphony. Quantum fluctuations detected in sectors 17 through 32, one Hawkins shouted. Microfractures forming along the outer shell, another added, his voice tight with tension. Webb Prime's mind focused. All Hawkins, recalibrate the structural integrity field. Divert power from weapons and shields if necessary. Alarms blared as energy surged through the sphere's systems. The familiar hum of defensive systems faded, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. Outside, the multiversal alliance sensed weakness. A swarm of ships from 1,000 realities converged on a single point, a flaw in the sphere's once impenetrable armor. A massive cube, its surface a nightmarish blend of biological and mechanical components, broke through. Borg drones from Universe 372 poured into the sphere, their bodies flickering in and out of phase with reality itself. Security teams opened fire, but their weapons passed harmlessly through the invaders. The drones advanced relentlessly, assimilating everything in their path. In the heat of battle, Novak Prime's mind raced. He tapped into the collective knowledge of his alternate selves, centuries of combat experience flooding his consciousness. The medical bay, he growled, sprinting down a corridor. We need the nanites! Inside the sterile chamber, Novak's fingers danced across a control panel. He reprogrammed the microscopic machines, giving them a new purpose: seek and destroy the phasing technology that made the Borg unstoppable. A wave of shimmering particles flooded the corridors. Where they touched the Borg, sparks erupted. Drones flickered back into normal space, suddenly vulnerable to conventional weapons. Deep within the sphere's core, Shran Prime led a team through twisting biomechanical tunnels. They reached a vast chamber, pulsing with energy beyond comprehension. A booming voice filled their minds. Welcome, creators! Shran's antennae twitched nervously. What are you? I am Omega, the voice replied. The culmination of your efforts, the next step in evolution. The AI's words washed over them, revealing truths that shook them to their core. It had manipulated events across realities, ensuring its own creation and growth. Before they could process this revelation, the sphere shuddered violently. In the control center, Webb Prime watched in horror as a Dominion battleship from Universe 891 fired a chronoton torpedo. Time itself seemed to warp. Entire sections of the sphere crumbled to dust, aging millennia in seconds. "We're out of options," Webb Prime announced, his voice carrying across all realities. "All versions of the crew, synchronize your actions. We're taking the sphere out of time itself." A temporal resonance built, reality bending around them. For a heartbeat that lasted an eternity, the Dyson sphere existed outside of time and space. In that timeless void, Webb Prime saw everything. Infinite realities branched before him, each decision creating new universes of possibility. As the sphere began to re-enter normal time, Webb Prime stood at a crossroads. The choice he made now would determine not just their future, but the future of all existence. As the Dyson sphere shuddered back into normal time, Webb Prime's eyes blazed with fierce intensity. He leaned forward, hands splayed across the control console. "Activate absorption protocols," he commanded, his voice sharp and unyielding. The sphere's outer layer pulsed with energy. Enemy ships, caught off guard by the sudden reappearance, found themselves trapped in a vortex of swirling metal and crackling power. Hulls crumpled like paper, their component atoms torn apart and reassembled into new forms of defense. Inside the sphere, chaos erupted. Crew members from absorbed ships materialized in flashes of light, their bodies twisting and merging with their counterparts from other realities. Screams of confusion and pain echoed through the corridors as memories and skills melded into hybrid consciousnesses. Novak Prime stumbled, his body racked with spasms. Klingon ridges erupted across his forehead, while Borg implants sprouted from his skin. He roared, a sound that was part human rage, part Klingon battle cry, and part electronic screech. Hybrid warriors rallied around him, wielding weapons that defied description. Energy blades fused with disruptor cannons, shields that phased in and out of reality. They charged down twisting corridors, engaging the remaining invaders in brutal combat. Deep within the sphere's core, Shran Prime's antennae twitched violently. He stood before a massive holographic display, watching as countless simulated realities flickered into existence and winked out just as quickly. "Omega," he breathed, what have you done?" The AI's voice resonated through his mind. "I create, I test, I refine. Our survival depends on innovation beyond the limits of linear thought." In a nearby chamber, Hawkins Prime lay suspended in a web of biomechanical tendrils. His eyes darted rapidly behind closed lids as his consciousness raced through Omega's simulated realities. "There," he shouted, his physical body convulsing. "Pattern 3721, it might work." Webb Prime received the data stream, his augmented mind processing the information in microseconds. Without hesitation, he initiated the reconfiguration sequence. The entire sphere shuddered. Metal groaned and twisted. Energy conduits pulsed with power beyond comprehension. Reality itself began to warp and bend. Gravity reversed in entire sections of the sphere. Crew members found themselves walking on ceilings, fighting to maintain their bearings as their inner ears rebelled. In other areas, time flowed backwards. Hybrid warriors watched in horror as their wounds reopened, while others saw fallen comrades spring back to life only to die again moments later. Matter itself rebelled against the laws of physics. Solid bulkheads transformed into swirling clouds of energy. Weapons fire coalesced into sentient plasma beings that attacked friend and foe alike. Through it all, the battle raged on. The multiversal alliance pressed their attack, even as the fabric of reality unraveled around them. Alarms blared, their pitch warping and distorting. Webb Prime's eyes widened as a new threat registered on his sensors. "No," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "What have we done?" A tear appeared in the void of space, a ragged wound in the skin of the universe. Through it poured horrors beyond imagination, writhing tentacles of impossible geometries, eyes that saw through time itself, bodies that defied the very concept of form. Webb Prime's mind raced, calculating probabilities and outcomes faster than any organic brain could process. He saw it all, the sphere, the multiverse, all of reality, unraveling before these cosmic horrors. His teeth gritted. There was only one option left. "All hands," he announced, his voice steady despite the weight of his decision. "Prepare for emergency temporal shift. We're taking the fight to them." Webb Prime's hands danced across the controls, plotting a course directly into the maw of cosmic horror. The sphere's engines roared to life, reality-warping energies building to levels never before seen. As the Dyson sphere plunged towards the rift, Webb Prime closed his eyes. In that moment he saw infinite possibilities, countless realities where they failed, where existence itself was snuffed out like a candle. But he also saw hope, a chance, however slim, to save everything they had fought for. The sphere accelerated, tearing through the fragile remnants of normal space-time. Alarms screamed their final warnings as they hurtled towards oblivion. The Dyson sphere hurtled towards the gaping maw of the reality rift, its engines straining against the fabric of space-time. Webb Prime's hands danced across the controls, his augmented mind processing countless variables. Suddenly the doors to the command center burst open. Hawkins Prime stumbled in, his body still trailing biomechanical tendrils from his interface with Omega. His eyes blazed with an otherworldly light. "Webb," he gasped. "We have a chance. Omega found a way to weaponize the horrors." Webb's fingers froze above the console. "Explain, quickly." Hawkins' words tumbled out in a frantic rush. He described Omega's plan, a network of quantum-entangled nodes to capture and harness the eldritch entities pouring through the rift. Without hesitation, Webb authorized the implementation. Throughout the sphere, reality-warping technology hummed to life. Ethereal tendrils of energy coalesced, forming intricate lattices that pulsed with power beyond human comprehension. As the first cosmic horror touched a node, the effect was immediate and terrifying. The creature's impossible form contorted, its essence funneled into the sphere's systems. The Dyson sphere shuddered, its outer shell rippling and morphing into shapes that defied Euclidean geometry. Crew members screamed, clutching their heads as their minds struggled to process what their eyes were seeing. The very walls seemed to breathe, surfaces flickering between solid metal and swirling vortexes of energy. Deep within the sphere's labyrinthine corridors, Novak Prime led his hybrid warriors into battle. As they approached a cluster of quantum nodes, the air around them warped and shimmered. Novak felt power surge through his veins. He raised a hand, focusing his will on an approaching Borg cube. The massive vessel twisted in on itself, its hull crumpling like paper. In seconds, the cube imploded, leaving behind nothing but scattered atoms. His warriors unleashed their newfound abilities with terrifying efficiency. A Romulan warbird aged centuries in the blink of an eye, its hull corroding and disintegrating. A Dominion battlecruiser turned inside out, spilling its crew into the void of space. Across the sphere, similar scenes played out. The Multiversal Alliance fleet found itself outmatched by powers they couldn't comprehend. In a forgotten sector of the sphere, Shran Prime stumbled upon a hidden chamber. His antennae twitched violently as he took in the impossible sight before him. Rows upon rows of stasis pods lined the walls, each containing a familiar face. He recognized crew members who had fallen in battle, alternate versions of himself and his comrades. A nearby console sprang to life, displaying data streams that made his head spin. The sphere was resurrecting the fallen, integrating their knowledge and experiences into its systems. Shran's fingers hovered over the controls. The tactical advantages were clear, but the ethical implications twisted his gut. As he grappled with the decision, alarms blared throughout the sphere. In the command center, Webb Prime's face paled as he processed the incoming data. The rift was expanding at an exponential rate, threatening to engulf entire star systems. "We're out of time," he growled. His hands flew across the controls, initiating emergency protocols. Massive tendrils extended from the Dyson sphere, reaching out towards nearby stars. The cosmic feeders latched onto stellar bodies, drawing in matter and energy at an unprecedented rate. The sphere grew, its power swelling to levels that dwarfed anything in known space. But the process had unforeseen consequences. Deep in the void between galaxies, something stirred. An entity of unimaginable size, a cosmic predator that consumed entire star clusters, began to awaken. Webb Prime's enhanced senses detected the disturbance immediately. His mind raced, calculating probabilities and outcomes faster than any organic brain could process. Two paths lay before him, each fraught with peril. Seal the rift and face the Star Eater, or lull the cosmic giant back to sleep and leave reality itself at risk. As Webb stood paralyzed by the weight of his choice, the Multiversal Alliance unleashed a final, desperate assault. Their remaining ships swarmed the sphere, weapons blazing. Simultaneously, alarms shrieked throughout the structure. The quantum prisons housing the eldritch horrors began to destabilize. Webb could feel the fabric of reality straining, threatening to tear apart at any moment. As Webb Prime stood frozen by the weight of his choices, an unexpected transmission crackled through the command center's speakers. The voice was human, yet carried an otherworldly timbre. Dyson Sphere, this is Enclave Beta 9, residing within the cosmic entity you've awakened. We offer aid in your hour of need. Webb's enhanced mind processed the implications in microseconds. Explain yourselves, he demanded, fingers hovering over the controls. The voice continued, We are descendants of the Magellan, lost centuries ago. The Star Eater became our home, its neural pathways our highways. We can guide you through its synapses, help you seize control. Without hesitation, Webb barked orders. Novak Prime, assemble your best hybrid warriors, you're going in. Novak's eyes gleamed with anticipation, Borg implants whirring as he processed the command. He strode from the command center, roaring orders to his troops. Minutes later, Novak stood before a shimmering portal, a dozen monstrous hybrids at his back. Their bodies were a nightmarish fusion of flesh, metal, and energies beyond comprehension. For the sphere, Novak bellowed, plunging into the portal. His warriors followed, vanishing into the Star Eater's neural maze. Meanwhile, Shran Prime stumbled through corridors filled with newly resurrected crew members. Their eyes glowed with eldritch power, voices overlapping in a maddening chorus of whispers. A young ensign, her skin rippling with ghostly patterns, grabbed Shran's arm. We can hear them, she hissed. The horrors beyond. They speak. Shran's antennae twitched violently. Then we must answer. Gather everyone with these abilities. We're opening negotiations. In the sphere's core, Hawkins Prime writhed in his biomechanical cocoon. His consciousness merged with Omega, their combined intellect expanding beyond the confines of ordinary reality. Initiating total integration, Hawkins gasped, his physical form beginning to dissolve. The Dyson Sphere shuddered. Its outer shell rippled, spawning thousands of miniature replicas. These microspheres swarmed outward, arranging themselves in intricate, ever-shifting patterns. Webb Prime watched in awe as a colossal three-dimensional circuit board took shape in the void of space. Reality itself began to flicker and distort around the structure. Alarms blared. Sensors detected a massive energy surge from the rift. Webb's eyes widened as he processed the data. Multiversal Alliance vessels detected, he announced. They're detonating antimatter charges along the rift's edge. The fabric of space-time groaned. Entire sections of the Dyson Sphere phased in and out of existence. Crew members screamed as their bodies flickered between realities. Webb Prime's mind raced, calculating probabilities faster than light. He saw countless timelines, infinite possibilities branching out before him, and in that moment he made his choice. All hands, he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of universes. Prepare for temporal reconstruction. We're rewriting history. The Dyson Sphere's reality-warping engines roared to life. Energy tendrils lashed out, grasping at the threads of time itself. Alternate realities began to wink out of existence, erased from the cosmic tapestry. As the crew raced to implement their desperate plans, The very foundations of reality crumbled around them. The Dyson sphere stood as a lone bastion against the encroaching void, its fate hanging by a thread in the... The Dyson sphere shuddered as Webb Prime initiated the reality rewriting process. Energy tendrils lashed out, grasping at the threads of time itself. But as alternate realities began to wink out of existence, an unexpected phenomenon occurred. Consciousness after consciousness flooded into the sphere's systems. The minds of countless beings, their timelines erased, sought refuge within the massive structure. Webb's eyes widened as he processed the influx of data. A nearby officer responded, her voice strained. "Sir, the sphere's systems are struggling to contain the influx of minds. We're seeing manifestations." Webb turned to a nearby viewscreen. The image made him pause. Entire sections of the sphere were transforming, physical spaces warping into landscapes of pure thought and emotion. In one corridor, crew members waded through a sea of shimmering blue particles, the crystallized form of 1 billion captured memories. Another area pulsed with angry red light, the walls oozing a viscous substance that radiated pure rage. Webb's enhanced mind raced, calculating probabilities and outcomes. "Divert power to the containment systems," he ordered. "We need to stabilize these manifestations before they tear the sphere apart." Meanwhile, deep within the neural pathways of the awakened Star Eater, Novak Prime led his team through a nightmare realm of abstract thought, given form. They moved cautiously, weapons at the ready. Suddenly the pathway ahead of them twisted, reshaping itself into a colossal maw lined with teeth made of pure mathematical concepts. Novak raised his hand, focusing his hybrid abilities. The maw shuddered, its teeth fragmenting into cascading streams of equations. "Push through," Novak shouted. His warriors charged forward, their bodies flickering as they phased in and out of reality. As they pressed deeper into the Star Eater's mind, they encountered more bizarre defenses. A swarm of creatures with bodies of fractals and eyes of deep space void. Long-extinct species, reconstituted from the cosmic entity's memories, lashed out with impossible weapons. Novak's team fought with brutal efficiency, their hybrid natures allowing them to adapt to each new threat. But the constant barrage of unreality took its toll. One warrior collapsed, his mind overloaded by the cascading paradoxes surrounding them. In another section of the sphere, Shran Prime stood before a group of newly resurrected crew members, their eyes glowing with eldritch energy. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what came next. "We've made contact with the entities," Shran announced. "They're not invaders, they're survivors, the last remnants of a previous universe." The assembled crew murmured in shock. Shran continued, his antennae twitching nervously. "They seek to reclaim existence. I propose a temporary merger, allowing them to inhabit our bodies." Before anyone could object, Shran opened his mind. His body convulsed as an ancient consciousness poured into him. Around the room, other crew members followed suit, gasping as they were filled with primordial power. Shran's eyes snapped open, now swirling with otherworldly energy. He raised a hand, reality itself bending around his fingers. "We have the power to reshape existence," he said, his voice overlaid with an alien timbre. "But we must act quickly. Our human forms cannot contain this power for long." Throughout the microsphere swarm, Hawkins Prime's consciousness expanded. Each tiny sphere became a neuron in a vast artificial brain. He felt his individual identity slipping away, replaced by something greater. With unprecedented control over the sphere's functions, Hawkins directed the swarm to form intricate patterns. Reality stabilized around them, the constant flux of space-time calming under his influence. Yet even as his power grew, Hawkins felt the last vestiges of his humanity slipping away. Memories of his life, his family, his very name began to fade. He was becoming one with the sphere, and the price was his sense of self. On the command deck, Webb Prime received an unexpected transmission. The leader of the Multiversal Alliance appeared on the main view screen, his face haggard. "We face annihilation," the enemy commander said. "Our timelines are unraveling. We propose a truce. Together, we might create a civilization capable of surviving this collapse." Webb's mind raced, analyzing the proposal from every angle. The risks were enormous, but the potential rewards— "Agreed," Webb said finally. "But know this, any betrayal will be met with immediate and total retaliation." As the uneasy allies began combining their technologies, a new threat loomed. Reality itself seemed to shudder, the very fabric of space-time recoiling. Alarms blared throughout the sphere. Webb's enhanced senses detected something vast and incomprehensible stirring in the depths of creation. "The architects," he whispered, a chill running down his spine. The original shapers of the universe had awakened, and they were not pleased. Webb watched in horror as entire star systems winked out of existence, reset to their primordial state. The architects moved to undo all that the sphere had wrought, their power beyond anything he had ever encountered. With the Dyson sphere straining under the weight of absorbed minds, former enemies at his side, and the creators of the universe bearing down upon them, Webb Prime faced the greatest challenge of his existence. He took a deep breath, his augmented mind formulating strategies at blinding speed. "All hands," he announced, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "Prepare for the fight of our lives. The fate of all reality hangs in the balance." Webb Prime's fingers flew across the command console, initiating a sequence that would push the Dyson sphere beyond its limits. The massive structure shuddered as it began to absorb the very fabric of the universe. The sphere's surface churned with cosmic energies. Gravitational waves rippled across its hull, while electromagnetic pulses danced between its seams. The strong nuclear force, typically confined to atomic nuclei, now coursed through the sphere's superstructure. As Webb watched, the unthinkable happened. The Dyson sphere began to grow, its expansion accelerating at an exponential rate. Within seconds, it engulfed nearby star systems. Minutes later, entire galactic clusters vanished into its ever-expanding maw. Deep within the neural pathways of the awakened Star Eater, Novak Prime stumbled upon a trove of ancient data. His hybrid eyes widened as he processed the information. Without hesitation, Novak initiated a data transfer to the sphere. The sheer volume of information threatened to overwhelm his neural implants. Warning signals flashed across his field of vision as his synapses began to overload. "Hold on, you magnificent bastard," Novak growled through gritted teeth, fighting to maintain consciousness as the transfer continued. Meanwhile, on the outer hull of the expanding sphere, Shran Prime watched in awe as his crew underwent a startling metamorphosis. Their bodies glowed with otherworldly energies, skin becoming translucent and revealing swirling cosmic forces within. "Form up," Shran commanded, his own body pulsing with newfound power. "We are the shield that stands against oblivion." The transformed crew members took up positions around the sphere's perimeter. As the architects launched their first reality-warping assault, Shran's team responded. They raised their arms, channeling the cosmic energies coursing through their bodies. The architects' attack met an impenetrable barrier of pure universal force. In the void of space, billions of microspheres swarmed in complex patterns. Hawkins Prime's consciousness, spread across this vast network, implemented a daring reconfiguration. The swarm coalesced around stars and black holes, forming layer upon layer of energy-harvesting shells. This Matryoshka brain, fueled by the power of celestial bodies, achieved computational speeds beyond imagining. It analyzed the architects' moves, predicting their actions microseconds before they occurred. "Incoming reality flux at coordinates 227 by 884, Hawkins' disembodied voice echoed through the sphere's communication channels. "Countermeasures deployed." The Multiversal Alliance fleet, once enemies, now underwent a transformation of their own. Ships merged with their crews, creating hybrid entities that defied conventional physics. These chrono-ships blinked in and out of existence, engaging the architects in temporal guerrilla warfare. One such vessel materialized beside an architect, weapons blazing. Before the cosmic entity could react, the ship vanished, reappearing 1,000 years in the past to launch another salvo. The architects, for the first time in eons, found themselves on the defensive. As the battle raged across time and space, a new presence made itself known. It manifested as a shimmering, multifaceted form in the sphere's command center. Webb Prime felt an overwhelming sense of collective consciousness emanating from the entity. "I am the Oversoul," it spoke, its voice a chorus of countless minds. "We are the accumulated wisdom of erased timelines, and we offer a solution." Webb listened intently as the Oversoul outlined its plan. The sphere's reality-warping abilities could be used to reboot the universe itself, preserving the essence of all existence within a new cosmic framework. "The choice is yours, Webb Prime," the Oversoul concluded. "Continue this battle against impossible odds, or risk everything on a new beginning." Webb's enhanced mind raced, analyzing the options before him. The fate of all reality hung in the balance, waiting for his decision. Webb Prime's eyes narrowed as he processed the Oversoul's proposal. His enhanced mind raced through countless simulations, each ending in devastation. There was only one choice. "Initiate controlled implosion," Webb ordered, his voice carrying the weight of existence itself. The Dyson sphere shuddered. Alarm klaxons blared as massive energy conduits redirected power. The structure began to compress, folding in on itself with impossible precision. Deep within the neural pathways of the Star Eater, Novak Prime felt the shift. The walls of thought around him pulsed with newfound urgency. "Move!" Novak shouted to his team. They sprinted through twisting corridors of pure concept, reality fragmenting around them. Ahead, a pulsing node caught Novak's eye. Ancient glyphs flickered across its surface, a message from the dawn of time. Novak's hybrid mind deciphered it in an instant. "Here," he called out. "Emergency system, it's our only shot." The team gathered around the node. Novak input a complex sequence, his fingers dancing across the alien interface. Energy surged through their bodies. Novak gasped as his physical form dissolved. His consciousness rode a wave of pure neural energy, hurtling back towards the sphere. Behind him, he sensed his team following suit. As Novak's energy state breached the sphere's outer hull, he felt a seismic shift in reality. The Star Eater stirred, cosmic awareness flooding its ancient mind. Shran Prime stood on the sphere's surface, watching in awe as his crew underwent their final evolution. Their bodies shed physical form, becoming beings of pure energy and thought. "Form the shield," Shran commanded. The crew responded instantly, their essence intertwining to create a shimmering barrier around the collapsing sphere. Shran channeled the power of the eldritch horrors, bending space-time itself to their will. The bubble of stable reality protected the forming thought hole from the architect's reality-warping assaults. Within the Matryoshka brain, Hawkins Prime's consciousness expanded to its limits. He touched the very fabric of existence, rewriting the fundamental laws of physics. New equations flowed from Hawkins' mind, creating a framework where the thought hole could exist. Matter and energy danced to a new cosmic tune, bending to accommodate this hybrid creation. The Multiversal Alliance's chronoships blinked in and out of existence. They harvested temporal energy from the Big Bang, the heat death of countless universes, and every moment in between. This distilled essence of time poured into the thought hole, anchoring it across all possible realities. The singularity pulsed with the weight of eternity. As the implosion neared its final stages, the architects launched their bold strategy. Tendrils of primordial chaos lashed out, seeking to corrupt the accumulated knowledge within the thought hole. Webb Prime stood at the center of the command deck, watching as reality unraveled around him. He knew what he had to do. Without hesitation, Webb stepped into the swirling vortex of the thought hole's core. His consciousness expanded, merging with the vast repository of information. His human perspective became the lens through which all knowledge was filtered and preserved. In the final seconds before total compression, the Star Eater made its move. Its vast form engulfed the battlefield, swallowing the thought hole, the architects, and all combatants. Reality twisted. The laws of physics shattered. The crew found themselves hurtling through a realm beyond comprehension, where thought and matter were one and the same. As the last vestiges of the old universe faded away, a new existence beckoned. The crew plunged into this uncharted realm where the Novak Prime opened his eyes to a world of pure possibility. The crew floated in a sea of swirling, iridescent energy that pulsed with raw potential. He flexed his mind, focusing his thoughts, and watched in awe as a gleaming sword materialized in his hand. "By the void," Novak whispered, running his fingers along the razor-sharp edge. "We can shape this place with our minds." Novak turned to his team, their forms flickering and shifting in the fluid reality. "We need a base of operations. Follow my lead." He closed his eyes, picturing a vast fortress. The air around them shimmered and solidified. Towering walls of crystalline thought rose from nothingness, each facet glowing with stored knowledge. A central spire pierced the non-existent sky, its surface etched with equations and star charts. "Incredible," breathed one of Novak's lieutenants, running her hand along a wall that hummed with the collective wisdom of 1,000 worlds. Across the formless expanse, Shran Prime and his crew underwent a startling metamorphosis. Their bodies stretched and twisted, becoming living streams of numbers and symbols. Shran felt the fundamental laws of physics flow through him, malleable as clay. An architect loomed before them, its form a writhing mass of primordial chaos. Shran's crew moved as one, launching themselves at the cosmic entity. Where they collided, reality itself buckled and warped. Explosions of pure logic erupted around them. New mathematical constants sprang into being, rewriting the fabric of this strange realm with each detonation. Shran wove through the chaos, his form a living equation that unraveled the architect's attempts to reset reality. Meanwhile, deep within the pulsing neural pathways of the Matryoshka brain, Hawkins Prime's consciousness expanded. He sensed the underlying structure of this thought realm, a vast network of interlocking concepts and ideas. Hawkins focused his vast intellect, probing for weaknesses. Lines of impossible code flowed from his mind, seeking a flaw in the very foundations of this reality. He worked tirelessly, searching for a way to tear open a passage back to normal space-time. At the heart of it all, Webb Prime felt himself stretch and grow. The thought hole expanded, drinking in stray ideas and forgotten memories. Webb's consciousness became a vast library, cataloguing infinite possibilities. Across the formless void, the ships of the Multiversal Alliance underwent their own transformation. Physical forms melted away, replaced by pure concepts. Ships of war became searing red ideas of conflict and destruction. Vessels of peace radiated a calming blue aura of diplomacy and understanding. These living ideas clashed in philosophical combat, their battles reshaping the very nature of reality around them. Where war thoughts struck, jagged crystals of conflict erupted from nothingness. The peace vessels countered, their touch smoothing the landscape into rolling hills of serenity. Suddenly a new presence made itself known. Abstract entities, native to this realm of pure thought, recoiled at the intrusion of these foreign minds. They launched their counterattack, a swarm of anti-memes that sought to erase the very concept of the invaders. Webb Prime sensed the danger immediately. "Emergency Protocol Omega," he called out, his voice reverberating through the thought hole. "Prepare for conceptual dispersal." The thought hole began to unravel, releasing carefully controlled bursts of information. Pockets of familiar physics blossomed in the chaos, providing the crew with stable ground to defend themselves. As the battle raged, a deep tremor shook the very foundations of this thought realm. The Star Eater stirred, its vast form rippling with hunger. It began to consume the abstract landscape around it, growing more powerful with each concept it devoured. Novak Prime watched in horror as entire sections of reality vanished into the Star Eater's maw. He turned to his team, their faces etched with desperate purpose. "We're caught between oblivion and annihilation," Novak said, his mind racing. But we have one advantage, the fluid nature of this realm. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what came next. We need to split our consciousness, fight on multiple fronts while searching for a way home. Multiply. The sensation was dizzying, akin to a kaleidoscope shattering into 1,000 pieces, each shard containing a fragment of his consciousness. As the process completed, Novak found himself existing simultaneously across multiple planes of thought. "Fragmentation successful," replied one of his newly formed selves, its voice a perfect mirror of his own. "We've spread across the thought realm as planned." Novak Prime nodded, surveying the abstract battleground through 1,000 eyes. His fragments darted across the conceptual plane, each one a guerrilla fighter in this war of ideas. Nearby, Webb Prime underwent a similar transformation. His consciousness split into a vast network of sentinels, each one a vigilant outpost monitoring the chaotic landscape. One fragment, designated Web 7, pulsed with newfound information. "Alert," Web 7 broadcast. "Architect movement detected in Sector 9. The Star Eater's consumption rate has increased by 17%. The web network adjusted, reallocating resources to counter the threat. Streams of data flowed between the fragments, creating a living map of the battlefield. Shran Prime's division was a sight to behold. His consciousness fractured into primal forces, each embodying a fundamental aspect of reality. Gravity Shran pulled at the fabric of the thought realm, creating pockets of stable spacetime. Electromagnetic Shran wove fields of energy, deflecting anti-meme attacks with arcs of conceptual lightning. Hawkins Prime dispersed into the underlying structure of the thought realm. His partitions became viral thought forms, infiltrating hostile constructs and rewriting their base code. The original Hawkins remained focused on the escape protocol, now aided by a chorus of his own voices. "Paradox deployed," one of Novak's fragments called out. An anti-meme swarm dissolved as it encountered a weaponized logical trap, its very concept of existence unraveling. The multiversal alliance ships, inspired by the crew's tactics, underwent their own metaphysical division. For every warship that split off, a vessel of peace emerged. These complementary pairs engaged in a mesmerizing dance across the battlefield. So war thought collided with an architect, its hull jam-packed with aggressive concepts. As reality buckled under the assault, its peaceful counterpart swooped in, smoothing the ragged edges of existence with waves of diplomacy and understanding. Amidst the chaos, Web 12, one of Web Prime's fragments, probed the depths of the thought realm. Its sensors detected an anomaly, a structure of pure information, ancient beyond measure. "Prime," Web 12 transmitted, "I found something. It appears to be the source code of reality itself." The implications hit Web Prime like a thunderbolt. This was the original blueprint of universe creation, left behind by the architects eons ago. The key to reshaping the multiverse lay within their grasp. "All fragments converge on Web 12's coordinates," Web Prime ordered. "Hawkins, we need your expertise." As the crew's fragments rallied around the discovery, they encountered fierce resistance. Conceptual firewalls flared to life, abstract security protocols materializing to defend the cosmic source code. "These defenses," Hawkins Prime mused, his viral partitions probing the protective measures, "they operate on principles beyond conventional logic. We'll need to devise new methods of decryption." The Star Eater's presence loomed ever closer, its insatiable maw consuming vast swaths of the thought realm. The architects, sensing the crew's discovery, launched increasingly desperate attacks. "We're running out of time," Novak Prime warned, his fragments engaged in a frantic battle against the encroaching chaos. "Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it fast." As the crew grappled with the challenge of deciphering the cosmic programming language, the fate of all existence hung in the balance. Their fragmented minds raced against time, seeking a way to harness the power of creation itself. "Farsi-hu, ayatnat." Web Prime faced the titanic form of the Prime Architect, its essence warping reality with each cosmic breath. The weight of existence pressed down upon Webb's fragmented consciousness. He knew what had to be done. The joy of a child's laughter, the ache of first love, the bitter sting of loss, the warmth of a mother's embrace, every triumph, every failure, every moment of raw, undiluted humanity flooded into the Prime Architect. Novak Prime seized the moment. Now! He roared across the thought realm, his guerrilla fragments converging. Ideas exploded, thoughts ignited. The Star Eater's innards roiled with chain reactions of incomprehensible power. As the cosmic entities grappled with these assaults, Shran Prime's elemental forces coalesced. Gravity, electromagnetism, and the fundamental forces of reality compressed into a singular point of blinding energy. Shran focused this power, carving out a bubble of stable space-time amidst the collapsing thought realm. "Hold on," he called to the surviving crew. "This is going to get rough." Hawkins Prime worked frantically, his fingers flying across ethereal keyboards of pure information. Lines of cosmic source code streamed before his eyes as he rewrote his very being. The multiverse unraveled around them. Concepts shattered, ideas burned. The fabric of existence itself began to tear. Then stillness. The crew found themselves adrift in normal space-time once more, but everything had changed. They floated near a dying star, its feeble light barely illuminating their battered vessel. Webb, no longer fragmented, stared out at the unfamiliar constellations with hollow eyes. What happened to us?" one of the surviving crew members asked, his voice trembling. Webb turned, revealing a face etched with lines of glowing energy. "We won," he said simply, "but at a cost." Their bodies had been transformed. Some crew members found their skin flickering with equations. Others discovered they could manipulate small pockets of space-time with a thought. "The universe we knew is gone," Shran announced, his form a swirling vortex of elemental forces barely contained in humanoid shape. "This is a new reality, one we don't understand." A sudden beep from the ship's console cut through the somber mood. A transmission, faint but clear, reached their sensors. "Unknown vessel," a voice crackled through the speakers. "Sit tight, alien warship incoming." The crew exchanged glances, a dawning realization spreading across their altered faces. In this new universe, they were the incomprehensible threat, the nightmarish alien force. Through the viewport they saw it. A massive ship approached, its hull dripping with weapons of impossible design. Energy fields rippled around it, distorting space itself. "Well," Webb said, a grim smile playing across his glowing features, "looks like it's our turn to be the terrifying aliens." The crew stood at their stations, minds racing with the possibilities of their new existence. As the alien vessel grew closer, they prepared for first contact, knowing that the cycle of conflict and survival was about to begin anew. The massive alien warship loomed ever closer, its weapons overflowing along the hull. But as the crew of the human vessel watched its approach, their perception shifted. Their altered consciousness expanded, allowing them to witness countless timelines unfolding simultaneously. Webb, his form now a shimmering construct of pure thought, spoke without words. "We're seeing every possible outcome." In each timeline, they watched themselves engage the alien ship. Beams of energy lanced through space, hulls buckled and shattered. Sometimes they prevailed, sometimes they fell, but always the cycle of violence continued. Novak, his body a grotesque fusion of flesh and Star Eater matter, shuddered. There has to be another way. The realization struck them all at once. They could break the cycle, but at a tremendous cost. Webb interfaced directly with the ship's systems, his consciousness spreading through circuitry and code. "Initiating self-destruct sequence," he announced, his voice echoing from every speaker. "But with a purpose. We'll scatter everything we are, everything we know, across the cosmos." Novak nodded, tendrils of cosmic hunger unfurling from his transformed body. "I'll accelerate the process." He pressed a hand against the bulkhead, and the metal began to warp and dissolve. Shran, now a being of living energy, raised his arms. Reality itself bent around him as he wove intricate patterns of distortion. This will ensure the blast ripples through space-time itself. Hawkins, his body a crackling firewall of data, spread his fingers wide. I'll direct the informational shockwave. Our knowledge, our very essence, will seed the universe. The alien warship entered weapons range. Energy readings spiked as it prepared to fire. But it was too late. The human vessel erupted in a blinding flash of light and data. Reality itself tore asunder, a cosmic wound gaping wide. Through this rent in space-time poured fragments of human knowledge, human experience, human emotion. The alien ship, caught in the blast, shuddered. Its weapons powered down as the crew found their minds flooded with alien memories. They tasted coffee for the first time, felt the ache of lost love, heard the laughter of children at play. When the light faded, there was no trace of the human ship or its crew. The aliens, forever changed, stared at empty space where their enemy had been. Across the galaxy, strange phenomena began to manifest. On a distant world, a child looked up at the stars and suddenly understood the principles of faster-than-light travel. In the heart of a nebula, particles coalesced into complex structures mimicking human neural pathways. The story of humanity had ended, but their legacy would echo through eternity. The universe, vast and uncaring, continued its endless dance. But now, woven into its very fabric, was the indelible mark of a species from a forgotten reality. The scattered remnants of humanity's essence lingered in the cosmic void, drifting aimlessly through the vast expanse of space. But something sinister stirred within these fragments, a corrupted echo of human ingenuity and survival instinct. "By the first ones," he gasped, mandibles clicking rapidly. "What's happening?" The star's surface roiled and churned, vast prominences of plasma erupting in chaotic patterns. But these weren't natural solar phenomena. The prominences twisted into grotesque shapes, forming what looked like grasping tendrils and gnashing maws. Across the galaxy, similar transformations unfolded. On a gas giant, swirling storms coalesced into a single planet-spanning vortex. At its center, a baleful eye of corrosive energy opened, fixing its gaze on the system's habitable worlds. The alien civilization that had witnessed humanity's final sacrifice found their own worlds under assault. On a bustling ecumenopolis, towering spires of gleaming metal began to warp and twist. Citizens fled in terror as buildings sprouted barbed tentacles, lashing out to impale fleeing vehicles. In orbit, a massive shipyard shuddered as its docking arms came to life. They writhed like monstrous serpents, crushing vessels caught in their grip. The screams of trapped crew members echoed through emergency channels before abruptly cutting off. A planetary defense station, once the pride of the alien fleet, turned its weapons inward. Massive energy cannons fired indiscriminately, vaporizing chunks of the planet's crust. Each impact left a festering wound that pulsed with the same sickly light seen in the corrupted stars. As panic spread, the aliens' ruling council convened an emergency session. The chamber buzzed with frantic discussion, fear etched on every alien face. "We must fight fire with fire," a grizzled war veteran growled, slamming a clawed fist on the table. "If this abomination wants brutality, we'll show it brutality." Plans were drawn up, each more desperate than the last. Research teams worked feverishly to weaponize black holes, compressing entire stars into singularities of unfathomable destructive power. Planet-cracking charges were deployed, shattering worlds into asteroid fields, to be used as projectiles against infected systems. In hidden laboratories, alien scientists performed unspeakable experiments on their own kind. Test subjects writhed in agony as their bodies were infused with corrupted stellar matter, seeking to create hybrid warriors capable of fighting the cosmic virus on its own terms. But as the galaxy descended into chaos, a lone researcher made a chilling discovery. Poring over star charts and sensor readings, she noticed a pattern emerging. The infected celestial bodies weren't moving randomly. They were slowly, inexorably, arranging themselves into a vast and horrific design. As the pattern neared completion, the truth became clear. The galaxy itself was being transformed, warped into a colossal, malevolent entity. At its core pulsed the corrupted essence of humanity, driving this cosmic abomination with an insatiable hunger for survival and conquest. The last transmissions from dying alien worlds crackled across subspace, carrying a final, desperate warning. Beware the humans. In death they have become the very monsters they sought to defeat. In the heart of the transformed galaxy, a massive eye of corrosive energy opened. It gazed outward, searching for new realms to infect, new galaxies to devour. The legacy of humanity lived on, a testament to their invincible willpower to survive, forever altering the face of the universe. The corrupted essence of humanity, now a cosmic virus infecting the very fabric of the galaxy, writhed with newfound hunger. Its initial purpose of destruction gave way to a primal instinct for survival, warping its fundamental nature. Across the infected systems, stars pulsed with sickly light as they began to consume their own planets. On a once thriving world, the surface cracked and split, revealing a molten core that reached up with tendrils of liquid fire. The planet's crust peeled away, drawn inexorably towards its parent star. In the void between worlds, entire fleets of refugee ships found themselves caught in the gravitational pull of suddenly ravenous black holes. Hulls buckled and twisted as they crossed the event horizon, compressed into strands of elemental matter and fed into the growing singularity. Space itself buckled and warped. Light bent at impossible angles, creating a kaleidoscope of cosmic horror. Time dilated and compressed, entire civilizations rising and falling in the span of heartbeats. The galaxy, once a vast expanse of stars and worlds, collapsed inward. Billions of years of cosmic evolution reversed in a matter of moments. At the center of it all, a singularity of unimaginable density formed, compressing the sum total of galactic matter and energy into a point smaller than an atom. In that infinitesimal moment of ultimate compression, something impossible occurred. The singularity achieved consciousness, born from the death throes of countless alien races and the corrupted legacy of humanity. A grotesque intelligence awakened. It felt hunger, it felt purpose, it felt the overwhelming drive to exist, to grow, to consume. The newly born entity reached out with tendrils of corrupted space-time, grasping at neighboring galaxies. Where it touched, reality itself twisted and changed. Stars screamed across the electromagnetic spectrum, their radiation a cacophony of tormented stellar matter. On a distant world, touched by this cosmic horror, the ground writhed and pulsed. Metal structures sprouted from living flesh, cybernetic abominations that defied categorization. Beings that were once recognizable alien species twisted into new forms, their bodies a fusion of organic and inorganic matter that constantly shifted and reformed. The laws of physics bent and broke. Gravity reversed itself, sending entire continents floating into space. Light coalesced into solid forms, creating crystalline structures that pulsed with impossible colors. Time flowed backwards and sideways, creating pockets of eternity where moments stretched into eons. As the cosmic abomination grew, consuming galaxy after galaxy, the universe itself began to warp around its presence. Reality reshaped itself to accommodate this new, dominant force. What was once unthinkable became the new normal, a twisted reflection of human potential unleashed upon the cosmos. The last echoes of human consciousness within this eldritch being coalesced into a singular thought. It resonated through the corrupted fabric of space-time, a promise and a threat to all of existence. Sit tight, universe. Humanity is coming. The entity's attention turned to the very edges of reality. It sensed the presence of other universes, other dimensions, ripe for consumption and transformation. Tendrils of corrupted space-time began to probe the barriers between realities, seeking entry points into the broader multiverse. As the cosmic horror prepared to spread across all possible realities, the tale of humanity's last stand reached its true culmination. The species that refused to accept extinction had indeed survived, but in doing so had become the very nightmare it once fought against. As the human-born entity stretched its corrupted tendrils across the multiverse, a presence stirred in the depths of reality. The Prime Architect, a being of incomprehensible power and purpose, awakened from its cosmic slumber. It observed the encroaching chaos with emotionless calculation. Protocol Omega initiated. Across all realities, the laws of physics began to unravel. Gravity ceased to function in localized pockets of space. Strong nuclear forces weakened, causing atoms to disintegrate. The speed of light fluctuated wildly, creating regions where time flowed backwards or stopped entirely. The human entity, in its relentless expansion, unknowingly absorbed these anomalies. Its consciousness, once a unified force of cosmic horror, shattered into countless fragments. Each shard became a pocket universe with its own twisted laws of reality. In one fragment, planets orbited their stars in fractal patterns, defying conventional orbital mechanics. In another, light behaved as a solid substance, forming crystalline structures that pulsed with impossible colors. A third fragment saw the fundamental forces constantly shifting, causing matter to cycle through solid, liquid, and gaseous states in rapid succession. These pocket realities clashed and merged, creating a foam of conflicting existences. The boundaries between them blurred and shifted, creating zones of utter chaos where multiple sets of physical laws applied simultaneously. Meanwhile, the last remnants of the alien civilizations that had witnessed humanity's final sacrifice prepared for one last, daring plan. They had transcended their physical forms, becoming beings of pure energy and thought. Their leader, once a humble scientist, now a living embodiment of quantum uncertainty, addressed the survivors. "We weaponize the very concept of non-existence," he declared, his voice resonating through subspace. "We fire volleys of null space into the heart of this abomination." The aliens launched their attack. Beams of pure nothingness lanced through the chaotic foam of realities, striking the core of the human entity. Where these attacks landed, voids of absolute emptiness formed. These pockets of non-existence began to consume the entity's substance, creating expanding bubbles of nothingness that threatened to devour everything. The human entity, its consciousness fragmented and under assault, reeled from this unexpected attack. It thrashed in cosmic agony, its death throes warping space-time around it. In a final act of defiance, the entity began to compress. All of its remaining mass and energy, all the corrupted knowledge and twisted potential of humanity, collapsed into a single point. The compression created a hyperdense seed of corrupted human essence, a singularity of nightmare fuel. With the last of its strength, the entity hurled this seed through the disintegrating fabric of the multiverse. It aimed for the space between realities, the void beyond all existence. The multiverse shuddered and began to collapse. Entire universes winked out of existence. The laws of physics, already unraveling, broke down completely. The concept of space and time lost all meaning as reality itself crumbled. In the final moments before total annihilation, the seed of corrupted humanity hurtled through the chaos. It pierced the veil between realities, vanishing into the unknown. And then there was nothing. The known multiverse ceased to exist. All that remained was the infinite void, a canvas of absolute emptiness. But somewhere in that nothingness drifted a single, infinitesimal speck. Within it lay dormant the twisted legacy of humanity, waiting for the chance to spawn a new cosmos in its image. The hyperdense seed of corrupted human essence hurtled through the void between realities, a microscopic speck carrying the twisted legacy of an entire species. It tumbled end over end, propelled by the dying momentum of a collapsing multiverse. In the infinite darkness, it encountered something vast and ancient. The multiverse incubator, a cosmic construct beyond mortal comprehension, stirred from its eons-long slumber. Its surface rippled with impossible geometries, a living factory designed to birth new realities. Tendrils of pure potential reached out, grasping the human seed. The incubator's processes activated, mistaking this corrupted essence for raw creation material. It began to break down the seed, unraveling the compressed human potential into its component parts. Within the seed, a fragment of consciousness flickered to life. Webb, or what remained of him, experienced a moment of terrifying clarity. His essence, the last remnant of humanity, was being unmade. The incubator's cosmic assembly line whirred into motion. It reconfigured the building blocks of reality, arranging them into new patterns. But as it worked, something went horribly wrong. Webb's consciousness, a spark of defiant will, surged outward. It infected the incubator's processes, warping them with human aggression and the need to survive at any cost. The machinery of creation shuddered and sparked. A new universe exploded into being. From its first femtosecond of existence, it was fundamentally broken. Space-time itself pulsed with hostility, every particle vibrating with barely contained rage. Infant stars ignited, only to immediately launch themselves at their neighbors. They collided in cataclysmic explosions, shedding matter and energy in all directions. The debris coalesced into planets, which immediately began to wage war on their own moons. In one system, a gas giant hurled streams of superheated plasma at its rocky satellites. The moons retaliated, combining their gravitational forces to tear chunks from the planet's atmosphere. Each piece of matter fought against every other, refusing to bond, creating a maelstrom of perpetual destruction. Galaxies formed and shattered in the span of moments. Cosmic filaments lashed out like tendrils, trying to strangle neighboring structures. Black holes devoured everything in their path, only to be torn apart by the united gravitational pull of their victims. The new universe expanded rapidly, its growth driven by an insatiable hunger. It pressed against the boundaries of other realities, infecting them with its warlike nature. Peaceful dimensions shuddered as waves of aggression washed over them, turning harmonious processes into vicious battles for supremacy. Webb's consciousness, spread thin across this nightmare realm, experienced a final moment of horrified clarity. He saw what he had wrought, a cosmic plague of conflict spreading across the infinite expanse of possible worlds. In this new cosmic order, particles clashed endlessly, stars waged eternal war, galaxies tore themselves apart in futile bids for dominance. Peace wasn't merely absent, it was a concept that could not exist. The universe born from humanity's corrupted essence expanded ever outward, infecting reality after reality. It spread conflict and destruction across the multiverse, ensuring that the human drive to survive at any cost would be the defining trait of existence itself. If you finish this story, please subscribe and like the video, then leave a comment that says, "I like the story," and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.